In a busy street near the railway station in Derby, you'll find this wonder. Winters, the photographers. The history of a British industrial city and its generations of people and the history of photography are intertwined in this special place. Photography was invented in the 1830s, and in 1855 the W. Winter Photography Studio began. It's now one of the world's oldest studios and it's going strong in Midland Road. For over 150 years, their photographers have captured the town's changing times, events big and small, preserving special moments, happy and sad, photographing its factories and its businesses, its leaders, its workers and its everyday people, photographing the people of Derby from beggars to royalty. As you walk into the studio, you get a sense of a working business with a foot in the past and an eye to the future. Hubert King's been taking photographs at Winters for 70 years.
I started here in 1945. I was 14 at the time, and they gave me a job washing prints. This was in cold running water, and of course it was rather cool, say the least. And we had to break the ice on the actual tanks before we get the water running through. Which was a bit on the cool side. And there were like two sides to the business, one which was the frame making and the other was photography. So there's really two parallel businesses, if you like. And of course we had two art galleries as well in the back of the premises, quite massive places really.
In every town, in every city, pretty much, there was a photographic studio like Winters, but they no longer exist, and Winters still does. It may be the only one that has existed for so long and is still functioning as a photographic studio, and in that they are quite unique. Studios are really important hubs for the community because people go there at important times in their lives and they want to have their portrait taken, and maybe generations of people in the community have their portraits taken. And what's important about Winters is that it has an unbroken and continuous visual history of this community. And when you first walk into Winters, the overriding impression is that this is still a functional studio, and it is. And it's been a functional studio for 150 years. We looked at a box of wet plate collodion glass negatives that could date to the late 1850s, early 1860s. And it's wonderful to think about the sitters at the time and to think that perhaps their grandchildren or great-grandchildren are still coming back to Winters and having their portrait taken, perhaps without even knowing that their great-grandparents or great-great-grandparents were also being photographed at Winters.
I came to Winters just over a year ago as part of the team that was put together to work on the plates and rescue the large format plates from the cellar, which were really at risk from damp and flooding. So it was the first grant that Heritage Lottery Fund made to a commercial company in the East Midlands, so quite significant in that respect. The scale of the project was obvious to begin with because everywhere you look in Winters there are glass plates on shelves, on the floor, in cupboards, everywhere. And I guess over the year that I've been here, the scale of it has even become larger. We estimated, I think, something like 40,000 plates to begin with, but there are far more than that. There must be. Louisa and I were talking the other day, and there could be up to, I don't know, 60, 70. She wondered even 100,000 plates. It's a huge archive, and really it contains the history of this city, the history of Derby, you know, from the time of the first photographs that were taken here in the late 1850s to the present day. It's an incredible story. So one of the other things we're doing is researching the history of the company. So there's a small group of volunteers who formed a research group, and we're starting to find out about when Mr. Winter first came to Derby and why, pushing the story of photography in Derby further back and right to the very beginnings of commercial photography.
Yes, it's amazing to think that over 150 years different people have walked through the studio and sort of had their portraits taken to add to their family sort of history and creating memories, and it's nice to think that I can actually capture that for the people of today's generation and add to the archive of Winters. Okay, Amy, with your right arm, just bring your elbow onto the table, put it up against you, that's it, and let your head sink into it. Now,
I started in 1986. I came just for 3 weeks, just to cover my cousin who worked here went on holiday, and I only came for 3 weeks, and I'm still here, nearly 30 years later. So, but that's the sort of place it is. Once you start, you never leave. So I mean, when Winters first started as a photographer, he was photographing people, recording weddings, that sort of thing. And actually, that's what we're doing these days. The commercial side, we don't do as much commercial work as we used to do, and it has come full circle, and we're now back to photographing people in the studio like he would have done 150 years ago. So we get lots of people contacting us all the time. Every week we have people contacting us via phone, email, from around the world. It isn't just local people who are doing family history, trying to trace relatives or whatever, and to ask if we've got negatives or photographs of people that they were related to and that we might have photographed over 150 years. So we get lots of people contacting us.
Yeah, I think it is important that Winters is preserved, as there is so much history there, both from the photographic point of view and the history of Derby. I would hate to just see it all vanish into the dust, as you might say. Again, we go back to the relatively the beginners of photography. So it would be, I think, criminal to throw it all away. It would be a great shame.
Well, the Heritage Lottery Fund have been brilliant with us because they've given us the impetus and the initial money to start seriously digitising these images. And it is something that we really want to continue doing for many, many years, actually. And in order to do that, we've got to be able to find ways of financially sustaining the project without always going back cap in hand to the HLF for money. So it is something that we are looking at, is to find ways of accessing different income streams from whoever, a variety of places, and whether we can make the heritage side of the business pay so that it's self-financing, so that we can carry on creating these digital files.
It's a big task protecting Winters' unique history for future generations, scanning 100,000 glass plate negatives so people can have access to them, and even in the future making a museum at Winters alongside the photography business. If you'd like to know more, or if you'd like to be involved, please go to the website.